The noes to the left, 126.
Wow. After suffering the biggest backbench revolt since he became Prime Minister over 2 years ago, Boris Johnson had to face MPs in person during Prime Minister's question time at lunchtime today, amid growing calls for him to change or potentially face a leadership challenge in the coming months. Now, having propped up Boris Johnson with Labour's support during a series of COVID Plan B measure votes last night, including that contentious one on COVID passports, which saw a Tory rebellion of around 100, Sir Keir Starmer came to PMQs determined to twist a knife.
And we will always put the national interest first. Can I ask the Prime Minister to get his house in order so he can say the same about the members behind him?
Again and again, the Labour leader emphasised how he was putting the national interest first and setting party politics aside, and questioning Boris Johnson's moral authority to lead the country.
We can't go on with a Prime Minister who's too weak to lead. So will the Prime Minister take time this Christmas to look in the mirror and ask himself whether he has the trust and authority to lead this country?
But if Boris Johnson was a man on his way out, well, he didn't look it. He fought back strongly against allegations of illicit Christmas parties, which were allegedly held in Downing Street and across Whitehall last year, which is the subject of an investigation by the Cabinet Secretary, and then going on to question Labour's own track record during the pandemic.
And above all, Mr. Speaker, we vaccinate, they vacillate. They jabber, we jab.
But there's no doubt that Boris Johnson has been badly wounded by last night's rebellion, one of the biggest that any Tory Prime Minister has faced since the Second World War, and notable for the fact that it came from all quarters of the Conservative Party. So the libertarian right, which has long been opposed to COVID lockdown restrictions, but then more centrist, moderate figures like Damien Green, who just questioned whether the COVID passports would work in stemming the spread of the virus. During PMQs, Boris Johnson only briefly addressed the rebels' anxieties.
I respect and understand the anxieties, the legitimate anxieties that colleagues have about restrictions on their liberty, but I believe, and on the liberty of people, but I believe that the approach that we're taking is balanced and proportionate.
The question for Boris Johnson now is whether he can take on board some of those calls for change that are coming from his own side and reset his premiership in the new year. He now has a very difficult by-election to face in North Shropshire on Thursday, where the Tories are facing defeat by the Lib Dems. And remember, only a couple of years ago during the general election, they had a majority of nearly 23,000. So that really will be a big blow. We have the ongoing investigation into the Christmas parties, and then further controversy over the refurbishment of Boris Johnson's flat. So there are now questions really as the country is facing a new COVID emergency with the Omicron variant. Questions from both the Conservatives and Labour and opposition MPs as to whether Boris Johnson is the right person to be leading the country through this crisis.